Welcome back to the Alba Rising news channel with the Current Week in Scotland episode. Today, we cover a wide range of unique stories that you will not see on mainstream media such as the BBC or any other English-aligned news centres. Today, we have the following: a fascinating look into the Scots-speaking community with an online chat room dedicated to Scots speakers using the popular social media app Discord, a new Pro-Indy Scottish resource website being made and set to release sometime next year to help students and tourists alike, SNP making unprecedented progress in the polls, especially in the constituency vote, the Scottish Socialist Party making a comeback, and a sudden surge in independence polls, reaching highs never seen before, even in COVID times. All that and much more to come in today's episode, but before we continue, make sure to subscribe, like, share, and comment your thoughts on this news report. First up today, we have something the Scots-speaking community in Scotland are certain to enjoy. Scots is one of the native languages of Scotland, with over 1 million people being able to speak it fluently. The Scots language server is a place where Scots speakers can speak to other Scots-speaking people without fear of being labelled a dialect, which has been disproven as the EU, Scottish Government, and, ironically enough, the UK Government recognises it as a language and not a dialect of English. The server is close to reaching 1,000 members and is doing a fantastic job of spreading the language, teaching about its history, and contributing to Scots communities across Scotland. If you're interested in joining, there will be a link to the server in the description below this video. You don't have to be a Scots speaker to join the server. If you want to learn Scots, you can also join it. There's also a space for Gaelic-speaking Scots as well. Next up, we have another thing that will be useful to local, everyday Scots. And that is a website being developed by Pro-Indy Scottish people called Alba Resources. The site will include SQA past papers and helpful tips for Scottish students in an interactive and memorable way, easy to digest, contradictory to the often buggy SQA website, and limited resources for Scottish students to use without paying a couple pounds for flashcards or tutoring. Alba Resources is expected to be completely free, however donations will be welcome and sponsors will be likely on the website, but they will not waste time on Scottish students. Furthermore, it also has information such as independence marches and tourist destinations for non-Scots. The website is expected to release sometime next year, possibly around March, in time for SQA exams to take place from April to early June. The SNP, Scotland's largest pro-independence party, has seen an unprecedented surge in polling lately, with some polls suggesting the SNP to win an outright majority in Scottish Parliament from constituency votes alone. Fascinatingly enough, this is the first time since 2011 that the SNP, promoting independence as the most vital issue in Scotland, has actually went up in polls, rather than go down. This suggests not only is John Swinney fairly liked among the general Scottish public, but also that Scottish independence may be closer than we think, possibly an INDYREF2 being launched in mid-2027. John Swinney is arguably the most nationalist and pro-independence leader in the SNP since Alex Salmond, whom led Scotland to the 2014 Scottish independence referendum. In more pro-Indy party news, the Scottish Greens are also projected to win a significant amount of seats on their own from the regional list. As the official Scottish Greens TikTok account has shown, a recent poll sees the Scottish Greens winning possibly up to 10 more seats if they're lucky in the 2026 Holyrood elections, making them have 18 seats in total. This makes the oldest Scottish independence parties getting a supermajority in the Scottish Parliament, which is a historic milestone. Speaking of Scottish independence parties, other than the SNP, the Scottish Socialist Party is reportedly gaining some popularity amongst some voters of the Scottish public, mostly in former Labour voting areas. The SSP has publicly announced its intention to field candidates in all 8 regional lists for the 2026 Scottish Parliament election. It aims to offer a clear, socialist platform as an alternative to main parties. Even though the SSP as of now are not expected to win seats in the Holyrood elections next year in May, they are slowly and steadily climbing up in popularity, even if it's by a small amount, which is an achievement nonetheless. The Scottish Socialist Party's modest climb shows that the broader independence left is waking up again. Furthermore, other small independence parties such as Alba are projected to win some, albeit minimal seats, next May. But again, the ISP are also getting some attention amongst yes voters, and even the recent Scottish Common Party has gained popularity on social platforms such as TikTok. Now, all this talk about independence, but is it actually popular? Well, the latest Norstat poll shows independence support at a whopping 6% lead, with 44% saying they would vote no, 50% saying they would vote yes, and 6% still undecided. Just a week before, independence was only in a 3% lead in a poll carried out by Find Out Now. Ipsos a couple weeks ago also found a similar result, and for most of this year Scottish independence has been at all-time highs in terms of demand. 58% of Scots, for example, support secession from the Union if Nigel Farage becomes Prime Minister, which seems highly likely as Reform UK has been leading the English polls and therefore the UK polls since early April of 2025. Surprisingly, 67% of Scots said they support seceding from the Union if there were a clearer economic plans and more transparency. John Swinney seems very aware of this, as not long after this poll, Swinney released the Your Right to Decide paper last month, and a month later, the Fresh Start to Independence paper, which, if you look at the trends, has clearly increased support for independence, along with the Geneva visit by Salvo and the Liberation Scotland, also boosting independence support, and the idea that Scotland is no more than a colony under international law. The recent SNP conference shows how bold Swinney can be, declaring that he will do everything in his power to fight fascism, and that the future of Scotland is independence. The First Minister's question, said to take place tomorrow at noon, will likely continue this independence debate mostly between the Scottish Tories and the SNP, and we could see comments by Ross Greer on the SNP's independence plans, and give the Scottish Greens' take on how independence shall be achieved. Either way, over 70% of Scottish voters between 16 and the early 30s support an independent Scotland, and this number is set to increase. Interestingly, in Wales, the SNP-aligned Plaid Cymru party is leading the Welsh Senedd polls for the first time, and this means in every devolved UK country we could be seeing a pro-independence party in all 3, as Sinn Féin is already ruling Northern Ireland, which is a party which advocates for a united Irish Republic. 50% of Welsh voters between 16 and their early 30s too support an independent Wales, pointing to how Wales was richer than Ireland until 1949, when the Irish Free State became the Irish Republic, which means Ireland, except for Northern Ireland, which remains part of the UK today, was 100% independent from the United Kingdom. That's been this week on Alba Rising's weekly news report, and we will be back soon with a new upload. This has been Alba Rising, Scotland's story in Scotland's words. Subscribe and share to keep the movement rising.